In Kenya, there is little accurate data on human trafficking in East Africa. What is known is that much of the current trafficking is for labor or sexual exploitation. Kenya is a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children who are then subjected to forced labor and sex trafficking. Kenya is situated in East Africa.
The translators are not here at the moment, but are coming here. So it's not important. You can continue further. Yeah, because the idea is that the program is in a third, but we want to have more time to discuss. So, yeah, exactly.
I should carry on?
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, thank you.
Majority understand English here.
Okay. So Kenya is situated in East Africa. It is bisected horizontally by the equator and vertically by longitude 38 degrees to the east. The country is bordered to the north by South Sudan and Ethiopia, to the east by Somalia and the Indian Ocean, to the south by Tanzania, and to the west by Lake Victoria and Uganda. Its borders are porous, and policing is mainly at border points, which leaves the rest of the borders open to trafficking. Consequently, her location provides a strategic vantage point convenient for human trafficking. As stated earlier, statistics in the area of human trafficking in Kenya are rare and difficult to come by, because of the diverse and complicated nature of human trafficking activities. That said, in 2016, the Kenya government reported 530 investigations of potential trafficking cases. Within the country, we have domestic trafficking. This mainly occurs in cases involving children where victims are subjected to forced labor in domestic service, agriculture, fishing, cattle herding, street vending, and begging. About 70.5% of internally trafficked people are from rural areas, and transportation is mainly by road. In about 40% of the cases, the recruiter is a relative or a person known to the victim. Girls and boys are exploited in prostitution, including sex tourism on the Kenyan coast, and at times women in prostitution, beach boys, or family members facilitate their exploitation. Children are also exploited in sex trafficking by people working in areas where cat, which is a mild narcotic, is cultivated, near Nyanza's gold mines, in stone quarry mines, and by fishermen on Lake Victoria. External trafficking is the most prevalent form of trafficking in Kenya. In these cases, it's mainly for labor, followed by child trafficking and trafficking for prostitution and sexual exploitation. Poverty, illiteracy, corruption, unemployment, and the desire for better paying jobs are the main factors contributing to external trafficking. These cases are mainly from urban areas, that is, from cities and towns. Transportation is usually by air to these destinations. And it occurs in three main ways. That is, it is external trafficking, where Kenya is used as a source for victims to be trafficked to outside countries. In these cases, Kenyans voluntarily migrate to other East African nations, South Sudan, Angola, Europe, the United States, and the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, and Oman in search of employment, where in many cases they are exploited in domestic servitude, massage parlors, brothels, or forced manual labor. Kenyan men are deceptively recruited from universities with promises of jobs overseas, but are then forced into prosecution in Qatar and UAE. As a trafficking destination, women are trafficked from other countries such as India, Bangladesh, and Nepal into Kenya, or from Rwanda and Burundi into the Kenya's coast for the purposes of sexual exploitation and prostitution. Indian women are recruited to work in Murgor dance clubs in Nairobi, and they face debt bondage, which is where they are forced to pay off by dancing and performing sex acts. Children from East Africa and Southern Sudan are subjected to forced labor. Kenya's largest refugee camp, that is Dadaab, hosts hundreds of thousands of refugees and asylum seekers, and the security situation there limits humanitarian access, assistance, and protective services. Some children in Kenyan-based refugee camps may endure sex trafficking, while others are taken from the camps into forced labor. Trucks transporting goods from Kenya to Somalia return to Kenya with girls and women who are subsequently placed into brothels in Nairobi or in Mombasa. And as a transit point for trafficking, Kenya is used as a transit destination for victims trafficked from the South and Southeast Asia through Kenya and then into Europe. Kenya is party to a number of international and regional instruments on human trafficking. I've listed a number: the United Nations 1949 Convention for the Suppression of Trafficking in Persons, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, Transnational Organized Crime, Prevention and Suppression of Traffic, and the list goes on. We're also party to regional instruments, such as the Model Law on Trafficking in Persons, Combating Trafficking in Persons, the UN General Assembly resolutions, the Banjul Charter, the Maputo Protocol, and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of Children. But though our Constitution allows for application of the international instruments, the penal consequences of human trafficking in Kenya are limited to two main acts of Parliament. Those are the Sexual Offences Act, and under sections 14, 15, and 17, these prohibit child sex tourism, child prostitution, and forced prostitution, and prescribe penalties of 6 to 12 years imprisonment. But prosecutors rarely use these provisions in which to charge offenses. Then we have the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act, number 8 of 2010, and this one prohibits all form of trafficking and provides stringent punishments of up to 15 years imprisonment for such crimes as rape. Most cases for human trafficking would normally include charges that are under the Sexual Offences Act or vice versa. In Kenya, we face challenges as judges and judicial officers in applying the laws, and the application of the Counter Trafficking in Persons Act of 2012 has created immense challenges for us. This is because the law does not provide adequate definitions on the different aspects of trafficking. Another reason is that the cases are not well investigated or prosecuted, and therefore various elements of the crime are difficult to prove to the required standards. Inadequate protection for victims and witnesses causes them to retract from wishing to testify, and then unawareness by the police of the various charges under which some of these offenses should be charged. As an example of these challenges experienced by the courts, there is the case of by the Kenyan Court of Appeal, case number 252 of 2012, which aptly describes this point. The facts of the case are that the appellant was convicted of the offense of trafficking for sexual exploitation, contrary to Section 18(1)(a) of the Sexual Offences Act. The particulars of the offense were that the appellant, in the year 2004, intentionally and knowingly facilitated the travel of PW1 from Rwanda across the border to Kenya for sexual exploitation. The evidence was that PW1, aged 15 years, came into the country under the care of the appellant in October 2004. Her evidence was that the appellant had brought her into the country under the pretext of taking her to school, but the appellant didn't take her to school and instead subjected her to domestic work and to look after the appellant's children. At some time, the appellant traveled to Tanzania and returned with a man who she claimed was her brother, who pestered PW1 for sex, but she refused. It was further alleged that the appellant again traveled abroad for some time, leaving her alone with the man, and that on another occasion, a businessman came and visited who demanded a kiss from PW1, but she declined and went to her bedroom. The appellant then followed her there and told her that the man was offering her $1,000 as well as a business in Malawi if she would sleep with him, but PW1 still refused. In 2007, the appellant enrolled PW1 in a local primary school. PW1 continued to live with the appellant until June 2007, when the appellant beat her up and threw her out of the house. PW1 sought refuge in PW3's house and later reported to the police that she had been sexually exploited by the appellant, and this is what led to the prosecution. In dealing with the issues, the Court of Appeal inquired, is this, and I quote, "Is this evidence enough to sustain the offense of trafficking for sexual exploitation contrary to Section 18(1)(a) of the Sexual Offences Act?" That section provides for the offense in the following terms, and I quote, "Any person who intentionally or knowingly arranges or facilitates travel within or across the borders of Kenya by another person and either intends to do anything to or in respect of that person during or after the journey in or in any part of the world would, if done, will involve the commission of an offense under this act, is guilty of an offense of trafficking for sexual exploitation." Close quotes. The court continued, "A plain reading of this section shows that the essential elements of the offense, which must be proved by the prosecution as an accused person, are that there has to be the facilitation or movement of a person across the border with the main intention of committing any crime under the Sexual Offences Act. Therefore, there must be evidence that the accused person was an active participant in the action of facilitating the movement across the border, as well as in facilitating the commission of the sexual offense." The court dealt with another matter. The court cited another decision of Kalekye Rono versus the Republic, where it was stated, and I quote, "The section under which the appellant was charged focuses on the person who arranges or facilitates travel of another person within Kenya or outside Kenya. It also focuses on the victim and then any other person who might take advantage of the arrangement who does something to the victim which would amount to the commission of an offense." Close quotes. The court then defined the term trafficking and cited the United Nations Protocol to prevent suppression and punish trafficking in persons, which states, and I quote, "There are thus three constituent elements. One, the act, which is the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons. The means, which is the threat or use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or vulnerability, or giving payment," that was a fast few minutes, "payment of the benefits and the purpose." The court concluded that the conviction to be staying these elements are essential and must all be established, so that while it may be true that the appellant facilitated the entry into Kenya of PW1, if the element of sexual exploitation was not proved, then a conviction will not be sustained. The appellant was as a result acquitted. I'll go quickly then to the conclusion. But when you look at the facts, they point to all forms of exploitation. Had the charge sheet been properly drawn up, such alternative charges as forced labor, slavery, or other practices might have been included. We need to look at our laws, we need to amend them, we need to consider what would happen in the case of the victim, what would happen, and I thank you.